Hi. Well, the topic of my talk is going beyond the known self, expanding into the unknown. So, as I share my own story, it is personal to me. I have noticed that each of us is on a journey of expansion. The journey of expansion is what we call our life. And the quality of this journey is governed by our beliefs. The quality of this journey is governed, dictated by our beliefs. Our definite chief aim is how we form our beliefs. Our definite chief aim is our heart's desire, our innermost heart's desire. So if the definite chief aim is small and menial, then we will lead a small and menial life. Likewise, if our definite chief aim is outrageously large, we'll lead an outrageously large life. In any case, one isn't better than the other. It's all opportunity for expansion. It doesn't matter if it's fast or slow. There is no fast or slow. It's all expansion. So we are individual experiences of the greater consciousness. We are individual experiences of God, of infinite intelligence, of love, you could say, the field of infinite possibilities, just as snowflakes are individual, unique expressions of water. And like snowflakes, we are perfect in our individual expression, and we are momentary. The snowflake is formed in its perfection, and then when it hits the ground, it melts into, you could say, all water everywhere. So this is my personal snowflake story. While I'm falling from the sky before I hit the ground and melt into all water everywhere. My definite chief aim, as far as I know, since I was a baby, was to know the truth of my existence. I guess I was a very deep baby. I have a very active mind, and I've wondered about the ultimate truth for as long as I can remember. And there was a tremendous amount of curiosity, and you could say longing to know the truth. And that longing has shaped my life experience. So you can discover your own definite chief aim in your own heart and recognize it as a compass for your life. It's the compass that makes your decisions, large or small, step by step. Those decisions create the dance between your so-called environment or outer experiences and what you would call yourself, which in fact are the same thing, but the life experience is the dialogue. All phenomena of self and other are a dance of this one huge, infinite intelligence, infinite loving intelligence of all that is, which seems to occur in a linear fashion. One thing happens after another, but in fact, that's an illusion because all occurrences are happening now, and there's only one now. So because of this perspective, I've placed tremendous value myself on introspection. And I seek a balance between the introspection and the outer occurrences in my life, what's around me, what's around me being perceived by the inner awareness of this thing called me. And certainly this is semantic because what's inside me is a reflection of what's outside of me, and vice versa. But the experience of life is this dance. So the heart process, not the mind process, is what I focus on. I feel like to find your inner compass in your heart, whatever your definite chief aim is dictates your entire life. The awareness of this is, there's a Buddhist term called prajna. Prajna means discernment on a deep level. It's your gauge for truth, your discriminating awareness. It goes beyond the analytical mind. It's like your inner intelligence. That makes sense, actually. If you're in a field of infinite loving intelligence, then your infinite loving intelligence can be discerned by prajna, which is discriminating awareness. Keyword awareness. So being open to the field of unknown possibilities, this field of infinite possibilities, which are endless, is how to take you beyond where you are, to take you, to expand you, to take you wherever you can imagine you want to go. And there's no guidebook for this. There's no manual. There's no instructions. It's just the compass of your own heart. It's actually all you need. Otherwise, we would have a manual or instructions. But you can, however, use the methods of those who have gone before. The teachers, the awake people that you might encounter either in some way, shape, or form. So my teacher shaped my life. He showed up in my life when I was 17 years old. His name is Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, Tibetan Buddhist teacher. He's no longer alive. They say that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that's exactly what happened for me. He didn't, he showed up. He showed up, and all the shaman in my life have also just shown up at exactly the right time. Something to keep in mind, you know. Teachers point to the truth. So that you can recognize it when it occurs. They describe it. But just like you could describe a meal, it's not the same thing as eating it yourself. You could describe a vacation to Italy, but it's not the same thing as going there yourself. Although if somebody described Italy to you, you would know Italy better when you actually got there. So that's the whole idea of a true, authentic spiritual teacher. Is they're pointing to the truth so that you can recognize the truth when you see it, when you feel it, when you live it. So I met this teacher I was still a student at Juilliard, and I really connected with him immediately. It was like familiar, something very familiar about him. And I did the formal practices. I went on solitary retreats at a very young age. Before I was even 20, I went to Buddhist seminary for 3 months. It was a 3-month retreat, you could say, with about 1,000 other people. When I was 22. And around that time, so it was between age 17 and no, it was 24, 17 and 24. I had two very unforgettable experiences that kind of marked, like a signpost, my spiritual life, my quest for the truth, you could say. One was when I was rehearsing. It was still at school, and we were doing a production of Romeo and Juliet, and I was understudying Juliet, and I knew the role, and it was a dress rehearsal, and the director asked me to do the rehearsal, completely like no notice whatsoever. I think he told me the same day that we were rehearsing. And so I put the costume on, and there was no audience there, but I played full out, you could say. I was ready for that. I loved the role, and I was completely prepared. So I did the rehearsal, and you can imagine it's a pretty substantial role that my focus was just, like I was forced to be like in the moment. There was nothing else to do. It was like being shot out of a cannon. You're just placed in this like pressure cooker. And it was great. I loved it. I loved doing it. It was like jumping out of a plane or something. And I noticed after the rehearsal was over, we were all meeting in the theater for notes. And so I put my street clothes back on, and I was walking out, and I noticed that I didn't have any thoughts in my head. My thoughts were completely on. I was still able to function, could walk across the room, I could talk to people, I could sit down, but I was in this state of like super relaxation, and I wasn't having any thoughts at all. I was functioning without thoughts, which was kind of a novel experience for me. It was really amazing. The second experience was at seminary, which was in this huge hotel in Bedford Springs, Pennsylvania. I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. And we had rota jobs, so that for an hour a day or however long, we had to do some kind of job. Because there were so many people there, there's a lot to do. And I was in the industrial kitchen, and this was the first time and the last time I'd ever had this particular job. And my job was to load dishes into the industrial dishwasher, which was sort of like this huge conveyor belt, and you put the dishes on racks, and they go through the dishwasher, come out the other end clean. And I noticed during this process of loading the dishes into the dishwasher, something happened in my mind that I realized that I was the dishes, I was the dishwasher, I was the kitchen. It was all one thing. And for some reason, I was alone in the kitchen, which is really weird. But there was this perception of me, the kitchen, the dishes, the dishwasher, the dirty dishes, the clean dishes, and the entire environment was all me, you could say, which was also quite profound and lasted for, I can't remember, a couple of days, I think. So I had these two very interesting experiences at a pretty young age. And my teacher, although he wasn't addressing me specifically about these things, he did warn a lot his students of what he called spiritual materialism, which would be taking a unique experience like those two things that happened to me and telling us that if something happens like that's out of the ordinary, and they call it like a mystical experience of some kind, that it's a signpost, but to not attach to it, to not, and definitely not try to recreate it, then it's just simply a sign, but it's not the destination. You haven't achieved anything. It's just a thing that happened. The novel experience is a sign and not a destination. So I kept that in mind, and I didn't even really talk about it as much as I can remember. I don't think I told anybody at the time. So life went on. I was practicing meditation a lot over my whole life since then. I've definitely had meditation in my life as a practice, like some people would take a shower, you could say. I mean, there were years when I didn't practice every day, but for the most part, you could have called me a Buddhist practitioner. And I led this really unusual life. Like, I remember I was dating this actor. He was nice. He was a great guy, cute, really handsome. He was like the most handsome guy I'd ever dated. It's kind of perfect. But I didn't feel any emotional connection with him. And I was really getting sick of like not having my true love in my life. So I remember walking on the beach with a girlfriend, and during the day, and some beach near LA. And I remember shouting up to the heaven, I am so ready to have the love of my life come now. It's almost like a command. Seriously, like I just like opened up and like made this proclamation. And 3 days later, I met my husband, literally just through a series of coincidences. And we got together that night, and we were together ever since. You could say I called in the love of my life. How did I do that? It's the heart, it's just like this like, I was proclaiming my readiness for it, opening myself up to it, making my declaration. I had a feeling about auditions. When I would hear about an audition for something or other, I knew what I was going to get cast as, and I knew what I wasn't going to get cast as. And I only wanted to do like really great plays, really great roles in really great plays. So that's what I did. Those were the things I got cast as. So I didn't get the big money stuff because I didn't care about that. I wanted to do the art part. I didn't care about the money. So I chose art over money, and I played great roles in great plays for not a lot of money. And I did that life wholeheartedly as an actor. I was very wholehearted, really loved all of it. And as things do, it morphed into something else. Things change. I think when you, especially if you do something full out, then then it it has an expiration date. And that's what happened with my acting career, is that the circumstances just changed. I moved to LA. I didn't have good agents in LA. My husband wanted to move to Ojai. I didn't like show business in LA. I didn't want to move back to New York. I was probably around 30. And it morphed into something else, which is definitely the truth of impermanence. You could say that I've lived a few different lifetimes in one life, just, compressed, compressed lives in one body. So I moved to Ojai. I felt very groundless because I put all my life up until that point into my spiritual practice and into my work as an actor, which I thought in my heart of hearts was the same thing. My spiritual life was my work in the arts, and my work in the arts was my spiritual life. They were the same thing. So I moved to Ojai, and I didn't know what to do with myself. It's kind of this groundless period in between lives and before the next thing happened. So I built this huge mosaic table, 8-foot table outside. It's beautiful. It's round, but I'd never made a mosaic in my life. And I called it this period. It took me 3 months to make this table. Called it piecing my life together. It was definitely a meditation practice of sorts, putting these little bitty pieces on this gigantic table. And that's when I, somehow it morphed into a singing career. I'd always been a singer. I'd done musicals on Broadway and stuff like that. And I just started to do more concert work and cabaret work, which I also found extremely fulfilling. But it was very different medium than acting in plays. And you fast forward from there, my life as a singer, goes on. And I ended up in this Kundalini retreat through a series of, ridiculous circumstances. And something my brother-in-law said to me, he'd been to this Kundalini retreat. I'd done yoga as like exercise, but I wasn't a Kundalini yoga person at all. But he'd had a very profound experience with this particular Swami. And he kept telling me that he thought I should go to this. And I'm like, nah, it doesn't sound like the right thing for me. And then sooner or later, like the third time he talked to me about it, this is my husband's brother, who's also Buddhist. And the one thing about Buddhism is that they don't encourage you to like go into other traditions. Once you're a Buddhist and you've taken vows and stuff, you don't shop for other, religious paths. You're a Buddhist, or, it's like you're committed to that. So the third time he talked to me about it, and he'd had this like huge, profound experience with this guy, something lit up in me, in my heart. I just got this feeling. And I said, okay, I'm going to go. So I ended up in this house in Knoxville, Tennessee, with like 4 other participants. It was a very select situation. And they taught us how to do these yoga poses to bring the Kundalini energy up to what's called Makara, which is the third eye area. And this guy, this Swami, who wasn't even there, he lives in India, but you send him your biographies, you send him your spiritual biography, you send him your handprint, you know, you sent him just all these details. He wanted a picture of your eyes, all these different things, so that he could design this yoga program for you so that your energy would go up. And these yoga poses were everything familiar. It was just all the same stuff you do at the local yoga studio anywhere. But your program was designed for you. So the second day that I was there, you know, practicing these yoga poses in this house, I had this really huge experience where after the session, we were doing, I think, 4 sessions a day. And, you know, the session was maybe, I don't know, an hour and a half or something. And it wasn't rigorous. And you had your own program. The person next to you had their program. So you weren't really doing it together as a group. You were just, you know, following your own thing. Then you sit in meditation for a little while when you're done. And when I was sitting in meditation, I had this feeling like I was being pulled backwards, like by a magnet. I almost to the point where I was lying down, which is really strange sensation. Like maybe I wasn't feeling well or something. It was just like this, like being pulled back by this huge magnet. It felt off. It just felt like, wow, I don't know what's going on. So I go into this other little room because I wanted to like just kind of get myself together, I guess. And I'm in this little sunroom off of the kitchen. This is big house, right? And no one else is around. I heard somebody in the kitchen, but the door was shut, or I can't remember. They were in there and I was in here. And I decided to lie down on the floor just to sort of like straighten myself out, you know. When I did that, as soon as I laid down on the floor, I started, you could say, being moved around the room as if someone took a rag doll and started tossing it around the room. Except the rag doll was my body. I was being thrown around, literally thrown around the room at a pretty high velocity. And I wasn't scared. And I wasn't even alarmed because it didn't hurt. It was just a very novel experience to take a dish towel and wrap it up like this and slap it all over the place. That's what it felt. That's what it felt like. So I said in a really calm voice, even though my body was like flailing, literally like just being moved around on its own, almost like if you had a fire hose and you put it down on the ground, how it would wiggle around like that, just go everywhere, right? Because of the amount of energy in it. And so I said in a really calm voice, even though my body was doing this fire hose thing, Dolores, could you call Joan? Joan was the leader of the retreat, the student, the main student of Swamiji, who lives in India. Don't come in, I said, but ask Joan to come. So Joan shows up and she sees me literally being moved around like, you know, like a doll, like a rag doll. And she's like helping me and saying, oh, Mom. And she's like, how are you? Are you getting pictures? I said, no pictures. I mean, my whole state was like completely calm, although I was crying a lot, this like purge of tears coming out of my eyes, but I wasn't sad. And but my inside this flailing body, I was completely calm. And this lasted for a couple of hours. Joan was with me the whole time, and you could say like holding space or something. And she said, I think it will dissipate when the sun goes down. And she was right. This was not her first rodeo, but she'd never quite seen anything like this, I don't think. Anyway, when the sun went down, it did stop. And I felt like a totally different person. When I stood up, I even had a different physicality. Like I felt like a baby deer, like a little fawn walking across the room. And of course, my mind was just completely blown. It's like, what the heck just happened? And she took me into the kitchen and she gave me some sugar water. She said, go to sleep and tomorrow, we'll talk again, but you're completely fine. Has anything unusual happened to you? I said that last night I had had a lucid dream that I had poked, that I knew I was dreaming, and I punched my hand through a brick wall and all this golden yellow light came out of the hole in the wall. And she said, that was you, that was Makara. That was your experience of raising your energy to here. So I guess when I did that, then all of this like physical stuff happened to me for some reason, probably to just organize my nervous system or something. I really don't know. But long story short, the rest of the retreat, I ended up practicing, the next day. And it started to very slowly turn into yoga, like spontaneous yoga. I wasn't doing my prescription yoga anymore. The yoga was doing me, except I wasn't doing it normal, like the way that I would do yoga in a yoga class. It was like Olympic yoga, where I was doing things that were humanly impossible. Like no one can do what I was doing, including me. I mean, if I was doing it outside of the yoga that was doing me, I wouldn't have been able to do these physical moves, like stand on my fingertips and stuff like that. It was crazy. And also my extrasensory perception, my sensitivity, like my sensitivity to wind, when I ate food, I could tell when it was going down. Like I could tell when the piece of food was like going down into my digestive system. I was completely aware of things that I'd never been aware of before. It was kind of nuts. And I thought, wow, I guess I'm going to live like this. Also, I had a lot of hand gestures, mudras, like spontaneous mudras, and a lot of visions while I was still in that retreat, visions of like things showing up, like this huge angel standing in the doorway, or actually Jesus Christ made an appearance. It was really nuts. Like this wasn't thinking that I'd seen these things. They were there. They were there in the room. A lot of stuff like that. I'm giving you the short version, believe it or not. So this spontaneous yoga continued for a year after that. So I carpeted my meditation room so that I could roll around in there and whatever it wanted to do. I was super good at cooperating. I knew to get out of the way and to just allow it. I never bumped into anything, never hurt myself, never, and if I was doing spontaneous mudras, like in the bank line or something, or waiting for at a restaurant, nobody ever noticed, never. So it was like I was living this like in this like kind of weird life, but for me, it was normal. It just became like, okay, this is what I'm doing now. So it lasted for about a year until I fell off a curb in Paris and broke my ankle. And then it's just like, bam, that was over. That chapter of my life was over, even though the hand mudras continued. And sometimes they even occur like these days. So after that, a lot of shamans showed up in my life, different fellows from Africa or Ecuador, and more recently, Colombia. And because I had a strong mindfulness practice, my basic practice of meditation, I had this groundedness to all of these like bizarre things that happened. And interestingly, I never thought I was a very good meditator. Never. I always thought I was kind of lame meditator, but I would do it anyway. I kept doing it anyway. I did it anyway. And I just put one foot in front of another. And I still can't explain to you why I don't think I'm a good meditator. I just thought, there's a lot of discursive thoughts. And maybe I was so aware during my meditation that I could see all my discursive thoughts. I don't know. I never talked to my teacher about it. He's not around to ask him anymore. But lately, now we're fast forwarding to now, or in the last couple of years, I've had a dissolution of my belief systems. And that's been another thing that's happened by itself, you could say. It's not like I thought it up and thought, oh, that'd be a good thing to do, dissolve your belief systems. It's been lonely, really lonely, isolated, really like the upshot of it has been that I've developed this amazing compassion for myself, like amazing love for myself. And I've come to realize that if it's happening, it meaning whatever experience it is, it's happening for you, for me. These things were happening on my behalf. So it wasn't mine to judge, and it's become like the outcome of that has been that I don't have a preference, preferring this over that. Well, I'd rather not, have my belief systems dissolved. They were dissolving. It didn't matter what I preferred. All of this is a little hard to articulate. So when the belief systems of who you think you are, the story that you made up for yourself, your preferences, let's say, are falling away, it presents those belief systems as who you're not. And even though it was painful, sometimes it was really scary, and sometimes it was super painful. I say was, I mean, it's still happening to some extent, but there were times when I was literally like, I'm going to die. This is it. The upshot of it was that I was always lighter afterwards, lighter, literally, like felt less encumbered by my identity, you could say. So I've also learned that there's no perfection of self, that you're already perfect. Like each snowflake is perfect. Your perfection is who you already are. And all the things we lay on top of that is what needs to go in our expansion process. The perfection is already there. We're perfect in our imperfection. It's just one fundamental presence of enlightened mind, you could say. We are a portal for that. So the reason why I don't talk about this much, if at all, is because it seems to me that everybody, the marketplace is filled with people selling their spiritual experience, their spiritual insights, or their spiritual advice. And it's a crowded market, and I don't want to be a part of that. I would rather stay the course with myself and let it do whatever it wants through me, to me, and through me. I think the treasure trove is who you are. Your true nature is perfection, and the uncovering of that is the process, you could say. And it's going to be different for everybody. It's going to be different for everybody. But my point is, the treasure trove isn't out there somewhere that you go and get something. Treasure trove is in here. Waking up to who you are, waking up to who you already are, your fundamental snowflake-ness. I'm also learning, you could say, about unconditional love. Unconditional love means no conditions. It's all there, actually, it's all that actually exists. And it feels like space. It doesn't feel like affection. It does and it doesn't. It feels like complete space. It's free of concepts. It's beyond judgment. It's beyond preference. There's no good and bad in unconditional love, which reminds me of the Shakespeare quote, there's nothing either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. And the challenge aspect of it is also interesting, because the challenge is what promotes the growth, the excavation of your true nature of perfection. The challenge is there to dissolve your ego identity, could say, so that you can fully be the awake person that you already are. Which is really interesting, actually. So that's some of the cool stuff that's happened to me. I'm open to questions. And so if you want to ask me something, please do.